Welcome on in. It's the Midday Show. Hugh Douglas, Joe Giglio, Kyle Quinn behind the glass. You guys with us. 215-592-9494. Good morning, Hugh.
Good morning, Joe. Good morning, Philadelphia. Hey, listen, fellas, learn how to shoot your own free throws, man. That's my advice to you today. You got to shoot your own free throws. You can't have, Pops or Bryce Harper or somebody else.
I knew you were going there. I knew it.
Shoot your free throws. So I saw the video. And listen, I think it was innovative by the young man to do it the way he did it, but she hugged Bryce first.
Wouldn't you?
I mean, come on, Joe. You got to shoot your own free throws, man.
I hear you. I said to you yesterday, the objective is to get the date.
Yeah, I mean, you got the date, man, but you got to shoot your own free throws,
all right,
man.
well,
Bryce Harper's not going to always be there to give you the alley-oop, dog.
He's not going to be. You're right. He was there last night for the Phillies, though.
He was.
And he had a home run and a double and another win. Hugh, I said it a couple of days ago. I'm running out of things to say because this baseball team is that darn great. Not good. They are great. I was there last night. It felt like a late August, September kind of game in terms of the crowd, the electricity, and of course Ranger Suarez on the mound. They win 5-2. Ranger Suarez is now 9-0.
9-0.
His ERA is sub 1.5. You see the stats that keep popping up after Ranger pitches?
You saw the 100-year stat that he got, lowest ERA and best start since my man, who was it, Grover Cleveland?
Grover Cleveland.
That's a hell of a name, Joe.
They don't
name kids like that's a good wholesome American name right there. Grover.
That's how you know it's a long time ago when you're matching stats done by someone named Grover over 100 years ago. This is unbelievable. Ranger Suarez is now 9-0. He is dominating out there. The offense delivered 5 runs, including the home run out of Bryce Harper. They play defense. They pitch. They hit. And they can today create the best start in the history of the franchise by going for a victory tonight against Texas Rangers. And here's where I'm at on all this. We've talked about how good they are. I said 2 weeks ago, this is the best Phillies team I've ever seen. And people are like, it's early, blah, blah, blah. Nonsense. It's not early. They're the best Phillies team I've ever seen. And, Hugh, I'm starting to believe it's more than just that, right? Because the Phillies have had some good teams. Clearly, 93 was a really special season. 2011 was the most special season in terms of regular season wins. They won a World Series in 08. They won a World Series in 08. So there's been some tremendous Phillies teams. Obviously, the teams in the late 70s that knocked in the door but couldn't get through. There's been, maybe 10 or so over the time, maybe 12, all-time great kind of Phillies teams. But, Hugh, I'm willing to up the ante today. They're not just an all-time great Phillies team. This is starting to look like an all-time great baseball team. Every once in a while, these pop up. The 2001 Seattle Mariners won 116. The 1998 Yankees, who won the whole thing, won 114 games. Once in a while, a team has a special year, and that's what this feels like. I feel like I'm watching an all-time great team. They have 3 top starting pitchers. They are number 1 right now in runs scored per game. Now, can they continue that? We'll see, but they're number 1. They're 3rd in ERA, and I was looking this morning, Hugh, they could have 8 All-Stars on this baseball team.
Easily.
I believe we're watching something truly special. This looks to me like an all-time great team. Hugh, where are you on the greatness factor right now?
You know what, Joe? I feel where you're coming from. Because it's like you talk about some of the special moments that this team has had so far. You're talking about the Cody Clemens moment from the other night. You talk about how comfortable Ranger looks, like he's just untouchable out there on the mound for the most part. And this team really hasn't started. It looked like Bryce is starting to turn the corner a little bit, but it's still too early, Joe. And I'm not trying to rain on anybody's parade because I know how everybody in the city feels. I'm walking around the city. I see all the Phillies hats and all the Phillies T-shirts and all the other good stuff. It's a beautiful time to be a Phillies fan. But this story is not yet written. Now, it feels disappointing. It would be disappointing if it didn't end the way that we all wanted it to end. No doubt about it.
I agree with.
But to your point, Joe, it has to be topped off. It's a great start. There's some great moments in this series. There's some great moments in this season thus far. But the story is still being written. But I'm with you. It feels special. It feels really special.
It does. And look, we all realize the story can't be finished. Like the cherry can't go on top until October. But sometimes teams have special seasons. Now, the truly, truly great ones win the whole thing. I mentioned 2001, the Mariners won 116 games, but they lost in the playoffs. They didn't even make the World Series. That would be a disappointment. The 98 Yankees won 114 games and then won 11 more in the playoffs. They won 125 baseball games in one season. Can the Phillies do that? I mean, it sounds crazy, but they win every game. We were talking about it this morning. Since they ended the series against Pittsburgh in the middle of April. They're 28-7. 28-7. This is the greatest stretch the franchise ever had over this long of a stretch ever. 215-592-9494. Bryce Harper, after the game last night, talking about the park, the atmosphere, and he's spot on because this is, it feels like everyone's jumping on board with something special early in this season.
It's been incredible. Obviously, being able to win games and do that, our fans are going to show it for us, and we applaud them for that because they make us that much better. Each team that comes in here and plays against us, they know we got a fan base on our side, and just a lot of fun, man. That's what we signed up for, and they show up, man, and it just makes me happy. It makes me smile, man.
Hugh, the roar of the crowd when Ranger struck out his last batter, his 10th one, to walk off the mound with 108 or 9 pitches last night, it sounded like October. People jumped up, standing O for Ranger Suarez. You don't usually see that in May.
No, you don't. I mean, it's a great thing to see, man. That ballpark is rocking. People are having fun. People are interactive. And this team is easy to like, man. It's one of those things where I was here in 2008 when the Phillies won the World Series, but it's something about this squad, man, and the fact that the likability factor is way higher. It's way higher, and people connect with that, man. People like it when they feel like they can go to a bar and meet their favorite player and have a beer with them or something like that, or have a random conversation about, lawn furniture or something crazy like that. You get what I'm trying to say. Just be able to connect with these guys on a different level, and that's what it kind of feels like this team is doing right now.
Well, it does.
And playing well.
Yeah, they're playing great, and they're deep. Even on nights where the offense isn't really – I mean, last night they had a decent night. They obviously scored 5 runs, but it wasn't like they all hit last night. But yet the 5 runs are on the board. They could have scored even more. And the pitching staff just always does the job. I mean, that's – how many times this year have we walked away saying that was a bad start by the pitcher? I don't know, like 3 or 4 or 5, maybe?
Yeah, there's been a few, but they've been few and far between, Joe.
It's unbelievable. Ranger now is up to, depending on where you look, I saw this morning he was 3rd in the Cy Young odds. It's Wheeler 1, it's Ranger 2, and then you have a guy like Aaron Nola, who's good. I mean, Aaron Nola's
he's not a slouch, but when you talk about what those other two guys
are doing,
he's number 3. Yeah.
I mean, his stats would be number 1 on some teams. He's number 3 here. 215-592-9494. Do you feel like we're watching something truly special, an all-time great team? Once in a while, a team has one of these years. They don't have to have 9 Hall of Famers, but they have a year like this. That's what I feel like we're watching here. And maybe John Middleton called his shot. Listen to this from John Middleton. I believe this was in the offseason. Middleton talking about what he wants out of his baseball team. And I will candidly admit it, when I first heard it, I was like, we're putting the cart before the horse here. Can this team actually win a championship before we say these things? But listen to what John Middleton said, and maybe he wasn't that crazy after all.
I spoke to them in the locker room the first day of full practice, and I said, look, if the people in this room, all you do is win a World Series. I started out by saying, I don't want to win a World Series. And people kind of looked at me. And then I said, the reason I don't want to win a World Series is if the people sitting in this room only win 1 World Series, I'm going to be really disappointed. The goal is to create a team that 50, 100 years from now, when people ask the question, what are the greatest teams that ever played baseball? That a Phillies team is in that conversation.
Hugh, did John Middleton call a shot in spring training? He said he wants the goal to be, when people talk about the history of baseball, one of the greatest teams of all time is in that room.
Yeah. I mean,
I think he called a shot.
Well, I look at it like this, Joe, because I understand exactly what he's saying. He's talking about multiple championships, but this is the moment where it feels like it starts. You talk about the fact that he was the only one that believed in all of these guys that they handpicked, because even at the beginning of the season, let's be honest, a lot of people were kind of reeling a little bit, even though they got off to the slow start. People were upset because they didn't get off to the start that they said they wanted to get off to. And then they righted the ship. And they did it by sticking together. And I think that's the biggest thing. And that's what makes this moment feel special, because even though some of these guys, some of the main guys aren't hitting right now, Joe, this team is still winning, and they're finding different ways to win. And there's a different person stepping up every night, making a contribution that's getting them over the top.
And when you have pitching like this,
It's easy to do.
Yeah, I mean, like, you don't need to score 9 runs to win every night. And look, they're number
I would
one.
like them to, though.
Well, yeah, look, 5 last night wasn't a bad night for you. They are number 1 in baseball in runs scored, by the way. Sometimes it feels like they're not hitting that much. They're hitting more than anybody else. They're scoring more than anybody else, and it's the best pitching staff in baseball. 215-592-9494. Phillies win again. Ranger Suarez continues to be as good of a pitcher as there is right now in Major League Baseball. And we're watching a 35-14 team